Hello, and welcome to this presentation that will tell us all about the longevity and mortality of dogs in England. My name is Dr. Dan O'Neill. I'm one of the VetCompass Programme team members at the Royal Veterinary College. This presentation is based on a publication that was in the Veterinary Journal in 2013. Dogs were domesticated over 10,000 years ago, and now they form an essential part of the life of many people in England. Indeed, about a quarter of the households in England have at least one dog, and there are estimated to be between 8 and 10 million dogs in the UK. Of these dogs, about 75% are purebred. That means they are of a recognisable breed type. And within these breeds there is an enormous amount of diversity. So these dogs vary in their shape, their physical characteristics, in their behavioural characteristics, and in their genetic makeup. Prior evidence that's previously been published has suggested that the average lifespan of dogs is somewhere between 10 and 12 years, but that this varies based upon whether dogs are purebred, based upon their size, and based upon their breed. However, a lot of this prior information is quite old, or it's based on non-UK dogs, or it's based on biased populations such as referral caseloads or surveys. So we were interested to find out what was the true status of dogs in the UK. For this we collected data from the VetCompass programme. In essence, this is a program that collects anonymised clinical data from veterinary practices, merges it into a single database, and then uses it to do research that will end up in publications or posters or infographics or online tools that anyone can just search. These results are then fed back to the veterinary profession to improve the quality of care that vets provide for their animals, but also to a wide range of other stakeholders, such as breeders or kennel clubs or the general public. VetCompass in essence is a philosophy that says that the information held by vets can be of huge use to help us understand the problems of animals' health and how to improve animal health and welfare. Across the UK there are about 5,000 veterinary practices, and we currently have about 10% of these participating in VetCompass. These 10% of practices give us information on over 4 million animals, over 11 million episodes of care, and 38 million treatments. And we have data on almost 2 million dogs and 1.3 million cats. For this particular study, looking at the lifespan of dogs, we had three main objectives. The first was to estimate the overall lifespan of dogs attending primary care veterinary practices in England. And the second was to look at risk factors. So this means looking at other aspects that may affect longevity, such as whether a dog is purebred, or its breed, or its size. And finally, we wanted to know what were the most common causes of death of dogs in the UK. And we had a hypothesis, an idea for this study, and the idea or belief was that crossbred dogs would live longer than purebred dogs, independently of body size. And there is a lot of evidence to say that this is true, but we wanted to see if this was correct for dogs in England. For the study itself, we used data from VetCompass covering January 2009 to December 2011. Within the veterinary clinical data, there is a field where the veterinary practices indicate whether a dog has died. So we searched in this field for dogs that were indicated to have died, and then we validated whether this was correct. We extracted information on what was the cause of death, and then we generated the age of death by getting the difference between the date of birth and the date of death. We gave descriptive results that gave the average or median lifespan, and also information on the most common causes of death, and then used a statistical technique called linear regression to identify risk factors associated with lifespan, such as purebred or breed. So, the results. This is the most important thing, of course. For this particular study, we used 86 practices, data from these, and this covered 102,000 dogs. So this was a really large study. From this 102,000 dogs, we identified 5,095 that had definitely died, and of these, 86% died by euthanasia. The remaining 14% had unassisted deaths. So straight away we get some wonderful information here on how owners care for their animals at the end of life stage, and the vast majority of owners opt for euthanasia to ease their animals' passage from this life. The overall longevity was 12 years, so on average dogs in the UK live 12 years. And the median interquartile range was 8.9 to 14.2 years. So that means the 50% of animals in the middle of that range lived somewhere from 9 to 14 years. So overall in the UK, dogs live a long life. However, within that there was a difference between crossbred and purebred dogs. Crossbred dogs lived on average 13.1 years and purebreds lived on average 11.9. So there was a 1.2 years extra lifespan for crossbred dogs. But maybe this isn't as simple as it seems, because maybe there are other factors within crossbred dogs that make them live longer. Maybe they are a different size. So we would need further analyses to explore this more, and that's exactly what we did in this study. So it was also of interest to see which breeds live the longest. Now in the UK there are 215 breeds that are recognised by the Kennel Club, and indeed there are a number of other breed types that the Kennel Club doesn't recognise. We looked at a wide range of breeds, and the breed with the longest lifespan was the miniature poodle, then followed by the bearded collie, border collie, etc. The crossbred dogs had a median lifespan of 13.1 years, as we've already seen, but the miniature poodle lived 14.2 years. However, there were also a number of breeds that lived substantially shorter lives than the crossbred. The Dog de Bordeaux was the lowest in this study at 5.5 years. Great Dane was 6 years. Mastiff was 7.1 years. So this means that this question of whether crossbred dogs live longer than purebreds isn't such a simple question after all. The median lifespan of crossbred dogs is longer than all purebreds put together. However, there are some purebreds that live longer lives than crossbreds, and then there are some purebreds that live substantially shorter lives than crossbreds. So really the message here is we shouldn't be looking at dogs as either crossbred or purebred, but we should be looking at what breed, the precise breed that's involved. When we looked at the age of death, we found a surprising distribution. So there seemed to be a peak of deaths in the first year of life, and then if dogs got through the first 2 or 3 years of life, then it rose again to a peak at about 12, 13, 14 years. So this means it's a bimodal pattern, and there are 2 periods of risk. First, very early in life, and then a larger peak later in life. When we looked at the causes of mortality, when we looked at our previous slide, we can see that there are likely to be a difference between the first peak and the second peak, and that's exactly what we found. When we looked at dogs that died before 3 years of age, the most common cause of death was a result from a behavioural abnormality or an undesirable behaviour. So these are dogs that may have behavioural problems and may have led to owners opting for euthanasia. The second most common was gastrointestinal, and the third most common was road traffic accident, which was just under 13%. And indeed, one could argue that a lot of these road traffic accidents may have stemmed from undesirable behaviours anyway, perhaps poor recall or poor attention. So when we add this to this, we have about a quarter of all dogs dying from some undesirable behaviour. And this gives us really strong information that behavioural training and socialisation is critical to reduce the peak of deaths before 3 years of age. When we look at dogs that died after 3 years of age, we see the number 1 cause was neoplasia or cancer. The number 2 cause, these were unrecorded, so the number 2 cause was musculoskeletal or generally osteoarthritis, degenerative joint disease, and the number 3 cause was neurological. A lot of these were senility, cognitive dysfunction. And these are very similar to humans, where it's cancer, osteoarthritis and neurological problems that will majorly afflict elderly people. So there is a very strong parallel here with human medicine, and this is perhaps one of the reasons why dogs are often used as research models for human elderly research, gerontology. So when we delve more deeply to look and try and understand what are the factors associated with longevity, what are the different risk things that make a dog more or less likely to live a longer life. When we looked at the dogs that died in the second peak, the higher peak at over 3 years of age, even taking out the effect of other risk factors, purebred dogs still lived 1.1 years shorter than crossbred dogs. So this is very strong evidence that there is an advantage, a hybrid vigor advantage for crossbred dogs when it comes to longevity or lifespan. Neuter status and insurance status were associated with longevity, but these are likely confounding factors and are quite difficult to understand in a single cross-sectional study. However, body weight was also shown to be strongly associated with lifespan, and indeed, as the dogs went up in 10 kilogram bands from under 10 kilograms to 10 to 20 kilograms to 20 to 30 kilograms, their expected lifespan dropped by about a half a year for each 10 kilogram gain in weight. So the dogs were losing about 6 months of life for each 10 kilogram gain in weight. And this was after taking out the effect of other risk factors. So very strong evidence that purebred dogs do not live as long as crossbred dogs, even once we've accounted for weight differences between the groups. And also, larger dogs do not live as long as smaller dogs, losing about 6 months of expected lifespan for each 10 kilogram gain in body weight. No study is perfect. This study did have some strengths. First of all, it was very highly powered. This was because of the large size of the study, and it was based on veterinary diagnoses. So these can be trusted to be more reliable than perhaps you might find from owner surveys. The limitations were that it was based on a selection of practices that may not be truly representative of all practices in the UK. It only included dogs that attended veterinary practices, and it's estimated that maybe 20% of dogs in the UK are not registered with a veterinary practice. The information on neuter and insurance needs to be further investigated, as these variables change over time. And we also had a proportion of deaths where there was no cause recorded, about 13%. So this meant that we lost information on these. So the overall messages, the big impact from this study, the big message is dogs live long lives. They live for 12 years on average. So this is very good news for owners. A lot of dogs die eventually from euthanasia, about 86%. So again, this is good news. These dogs are spared suffering at the end of their lives. Big message, crossbreeds do outlive purebreds independently of size by over a year. And the other big message is that we should be looking at breeds rather than purebred as an overall group, because the breeds vary dramatically in their longevity, from 5.5 years in the Dog de Bordeaux all the way up to over 14 years in a miniature poodle. And as an heuristic, a rule of thumb, we can say that for every 10 kilograms increase in body size, dogs are expected to lose about 6 months of lifespan. A major message from a welfare perspective is that younger dogs tend to die, especially from behavioural, gastrointestinal and road traffic accidents. And behavioural and road traffic accidents could be reduced. These deaths could be reduced by better socialisation and behavioural training. And older dogs tend to die of the same diseases as elderly humans are afflicted with. So cancers, arthritis and neurological problems. So I would like to acknowledge the entire veterinary team here at VetCompass at the Royal Veterinary College, and also our collaborators at the University of Sydney. I am supported currently at the Royal Veterinary College by the Kennel Club Charitable Trust, and this study on longevity in dogs was part of my PhD, which was supported by the RSPCA, and I would like to gratefully acknowledge both of these bodies, as well as all the supporters of the VetCompass Programme. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to welcoming you back to another presentation from the VetCompass Programme in the near future.